A dubious anniversary in pro wrestling, as well as a superstar's birthday share the day. Tanahashi's final opponent at Wrestle Kingdom has been chosen. We get some of your thoughts on AI in pro wrestling. Plus, the ballots are in for Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer's Hall of Fame for this year. We'll talk to him about that and a bunch more.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself
with Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about? Yeah. Well, the professional wrestling.
Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
I love professional wrestling.
So weird. You have all this extra time this weekend to go out and do things and see people and stuff. It's like there isn't 30 wrestling shows going on at the same time, but there will be again, and that's what we're here to talk about. How you doing? I'm Mike McGuire. Appreciate you checking out this week's show as always. Next week, as promised, a pretty special announcement regarding the future of what you're listening to now, and it's something that I don't mean to be coy about it. It's something that if you've been listening for a while and you know me at all, you know it's something that I've been wanting to see happen with what's going on here, and that's all I can really say until we make it official next week. But we'll have a special guest on to talk about that and why it's happening, and it's all good stuff, I promise. And it's not one of those things where, your boss sits you down and it's like, well, we just merged with this other company, and no news is good news, and it's all good stuff, and that's all we're going to talk about. And then all of a sudden, everything's wrong and everything's different. No, it's not going to be that at all. If anything, this is a step in the positive direction, and I can't wait for you to find out more about that. But enough about that. Enough housekeeping stuff. Let's talk about the week that was in pro wrestling. Again, not a huge news week in the wrestling business, which isn't a bad thing, but at the same time, lots of things happening on TV. The thing we actually watch and like watching and like talking about. Lots going on there. We're starting to see some new feuds develop. We're seeing the patchwork from injuries start to lay itself out in new challengers, new faces in title pictures, and of course, the upcoming approach to things like Survivor Series and Full Gear for AEW, as well as that Saturday night's main event with John Cena's final match. We'll talk about some of those things, and it's also a dubious day in pro wrestling history, at least this past weekend. November the 9th is known as the day that the Montreal Screwjob took place. We're not going to delve that deep into it, but I do talk about it with Dave Meltzer a bit because it's still one of those things that changed the wrestling landscape. At the same time, it's now almost 30 years ago. Are people still talking about it? Do people still care? There are people who don't know. And we'll talk about that as well. And your opinions on AI in pro wrestling, generative AI. So basically watching entire shows, matches, stars made up in AI. We're seeing it in music. We're seeing it in media where completely computer-generated people are now being used to replace a lot of art forms and a lot of things out there that, frankly, this guy's opinion, they shouldn't be. I think pro wrestling needs to be one of those worlds where we just don't allow it and we don't accept it. That said, we're not living under a regime where you don't have freedom of choice. So we'll talk about that, the good and the bad, from some of your opinions that came up on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. That's where we invite you to join us each and every week to join the conversation. We always have a great time there, and always cool, respectable people offering insight and feedback. And some people are hilarious, and some people think they're hilarious, and that's okay too. As long as they're not jerks about it, that's all we ask, and you'll dig it as well. Celebrate Wrestling -- McGuire on Wrestling, wherever you are on Facebook. Follow that page and join us there for the conversation. While it may not be the news heaviest week, there are still things to talk about. We've boiled down some of the 5 biggest stories in pro wrestling, as we do every week in the 5 count.
You want to hear that breaking news?
We start off with an interesting series of events that all spawned by a new YouTube channel from Luke Menzies, who used to wrestle under the name Ridge Holland in WWE. Menzies launched a channel to talk about his journey and follow the route of many former WWE and AEW stars and trying to keep their name out there and relevant by starting a social media campaign. Menzies went on to detail the story of how he got injured and found out that his WWE contract was not going to be renewed while out on injury.
That's when I got the call that they said that they weren't going to renew my contract. Okay, well, I'm injured and don't know how I'm going to make a living.
He then went on to talk about other complications he's been having, which may require a neck surgery to remedy them.
I'm probably going to have my neck fused. I've got some issues there from my wrestling career where I'm getting kind of radiating pain down my arms, and I think it's a C5, C6 that they possibly need fusing there. I've got some nerve compression going on, so I'd like to get that fixed and not have to deal with that in later life, if I'm honest.
Now, while he had mentioned in the video that there was no longer WWE health insurance covering him, at no time did he actually solicit any donations. A GoFundMe account was started by his mom to try and help raise money, and was in excess of $10,000 in funds raised for the former WWE star before he took to Twitter again to request that fans not donate to that campaign. He says he wanted to clarify he was not aware the page was going live and had no prior discussion with the family member who created it. He also says he's requested that no further donations be accepted and the change would be effective within 24 hours of his post. He says he's going to donate any of the money that was received to charity and has since apologized for the confusion. We now know who Tanahashi's final opponent is going to be in New Japan Pro Wrestling at Wrestle Kingdom 20, and it is not going to be Shinsuke Nakamura. Hot off victory against Yuto Ice, Tanahashi was thanking the crowd and saying goodnight when a familiar sound was heard in the arena for the first time in almost 2 years. Kazuchika Okada will renew his rivalry with Tanahashi, perhaps one of the greatest rivalries in New Japan, one last time for the retirement match on January 4th of next year. Okada was joined to the ring by Gato, who of course had dropped the hint that he had somebody in mind for Tanahashi's final opponent. The two then faced off with a promo in the center of the ring in which Okada said to Tanahashi, "Congratulations on your retirement. Thanks for your hard work. Don't get too tired before January 4th. It's going to sound like I'm poking fun at this because, well, frankly, I kind of am, but I don't mean to. AEW has announced that for the upcoming Full Gear pay-per-view, they'll be introducing yet another championship title. Tony Schiavone had these words to say about it this past Wednesday on Dynamite.
The winner of the Casino Gauntlet match earning the very first AEW National Championship. This national championship is known worldwide. It's been almost 40 years since the national championship has been right here on TBS.
Now, as there can be in wrestling, there's some dispute about the national championship and as to whether or not the NWA owned by Billy Corgan has that title or if this AEW one will continue the tradition of the original. Nevertheless, the new national championship will make its debut 2 weeks from now. An interesting, if not cryptic, update from Canada's Kevin Owens, who's been out on injury for some time now. Kevin Owens recently took to X and posted a video of what appears to be him doing shuttle runs, getting ready to return to the ring. Owens posted the video this past Friday, and it's the first time we've seen him doing anything physical since earlier this year when he announced on SmackDown that he was immediately going to undergo neck surgery. Remember, this was after the whole thing with Cody and the Winged Eagle belt. Anyways, bottom line is, while there's no set return date for KO, there is speculation that he could be making his way back to WWE, maybe in time for WrestleMania 42. Still several months away, but many also say that that would be the bare minimum amount of time he would need to recover from the procedure. And as we wait for WWE's Saturday night's main event in Washington, D.C. to showcase John Cena's last match, an update on ticket prices from resale website StubHub. Right now, for single seats, the best price you can get at the highest tippy-top point of the arena in Washington is $386 Canadian per ticket. Now, if you'd like to try and get yourself close to ringside, the best seats available right now go for $6,393 Canadian per piece. It does get you on the hard cam side, so you would see yourself on TV, probably looking back and going, wow, remember when I had $6,000 to sit in one spot for a few hours? There's also another set of tickets just behind the commentary 3 rows back that are going for the low price of $7,995 Canadian each. Yeah, still lots left, but it's going to cost you some bucks. All right, well, this doesn't cost you anything other than your time and maybe a subscription to our social media, our YouTube, and of course our podcast feed. But thank you so much for joining us here. Coming up next, we're going to catch up with Dave Meltzer and how 2 little graphics have sent the internet in a tizzy. That's on the way.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing. Right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it. We hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcast.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, Dave, I had something I was going to start with, but wouldn't you know, AEW wished their contracted star, Chris Jericho, a happy birthday today via graphic a few hours ago.
In fact, it is his birthday.
55. Happy birthday, Chris Jericho.
55. Yeah.
Yep. He then followed up with a photo of himself in what looks like his home gym, just shredded to the core.
Good for him.
Which I think I could stop eating for a year and not get that ripped. Like it's
pretty. At that age, it's difficult. It really is. So good for him.
He's looking good, but now, of course, everybody's going crazy one way or the other. Whether
I don't think it's evidence of anything, honestly.
Okay, well let's get the supposed out here.
Chris is going to want believe me, Chris is going to want the most publicity possible.
Well, right? That's what we're giving him right now. So let me get it out. So Chris is obviously posting that he's in great shape. There's speculation he might want to be returning to WWE, but of course he's still under contract to AEW, and of course they're going to wish him a happy birthday. But for those fans that like to read everything as a hint, everything as a sign, like you said there, you don't. I don't read any.
I don't read any of this as a sign. I don't read any of this as a sign. And I don't want to give my speculation because all it is speculation.
Right.
It's funny because it's like yes, I know the guy, and I am the last person he's going to tell anything to when it comes to this because he's going to want me to be surprised when he shows up on either show because that's just how he is. But he also knows my feelings. And I mean, that's not a secret. I've mentioned it a million times. So I've written about it to death, so it is what it is.
Well, again, for those that may be just checking out the show for the first time here, where do you stand on the whole Chris Jericho situation?
I think that he should go wherever the best offer is. And if it's close, go to WWE.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's just, if it's close, if it's just that time, I think a fresh new coat of paint and that audience is going to be really thrilled to see him. I mean, not the AEW audience. I just don't know. They might be thrilled after all this, just to get him back, feeling it's like a win over WWE. I don't know, but I know the WWE audience would be thrilled. And it's, now, I mean, there's another key too. And that is if WWE wants him specifically to do a retirement angle and he is not wanting to retire this year, then AEW again goes to the head of the table, so to speak. So it's up to whether, number one, he wants to retire or not. Number two, if WWE only wants him for a retirement angle, which I don't know, but I do know that they want him for a retirement angle. That doesn't mean, you know what I mean? But he might, if it's a retirement angle in 2026 and a retirement angle in 2028, those are two separate things, because he may think, 2028, that's not a bad idea. And he may think 2026 is not a bad idea also. I mean, I don't know. It's just like that. It all depends on what he wants out of the next year. So there's a lot of weighing questions. And again, I don't know the money offers that he's getting. And and the creative ideas too. Because the reality is, at the end of the day, for most people, I would say go where the money is. But with Chris Jericho, I would say go where the creative fits your need the most, more than money, because at his stage of life, he's got money. Happiness is the key. You know what I mean? And just wherever he thinks he's going to be the most happy right now. And that's, I guess that would be my advice. And, I've probably said as much, and he's probably heard as much from me at that point as well.
Fair enough. Well, it's interesting you say that too, though, because in one way, for us longtime fans that remember Chris Jericho's heydays in WWE and what he did, I mean, obviously that's a quick callback for anybody there. However, there's been this new wave of popularity, especially over young fans over the last few years here for WWE. So I could see Jericho, if he did go back to WWE, I mean, there would be 1 year where they'd basically just be reintroducing him, I think, to a lot of fans. And then they could run another year where they run the retirement after that.
I don't think so.
No.
I think even if they're not watching AEW fans, they know who Chris Jericho is.
I'm not saying they don't know who he is, but
I mean, they knew who Bill Goldberg was. They know who, anyone. They know. A lot of them knew who Ethan Page was, and he wasn't even used in AEW.
Well, I don't mean like a total reintroduction, but let's face it, we need to build some sort of a Chris Jericho for this run of WWE. Like,
they should. Of course,
get a feud, get something going.
Of course, they should build him up and make it a big deal if he's coming in. Of course, they should do several weeks of stuff.
So, if I'm Jericho, I'm saying why not build a year out of it and then do the retirement the next year, or maybe the year after that, or the year after that, right?
I mean, that depends on what he wants, and that's not the worst idea either. Yeah.
Now, that being said, it flips me back to guys like Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, right? Edge and Christian, who at one time seemed aged out of WWE. And so they're doing their thing in AEW and they're thriving doing what they do. But is Jericho a special circumstance, you think, where having a guy Jericho's age and at his stage in his career would still make an impact for them in a positive way? Not that Edge and Christian wouldn't have, but
my gut says yes, short term. And long term, it depends on, a lot of the key to WWE too is also the ability to talk. Right. And if they but it's not just the ability to talk, the ability to get them to give you the time to talk. If he were to come in and they make the idea that, hey, look, he's old and we are trying to push young people, so we're not going to give him the opportunity to talk for more than a little bit for a very short period of time, then that's not optimum. And that's another thing. It's like it's WWE does have to build young talent. AEW has to build young talent. So it becomes a question of how much do you invest and how much, Jericho would come in. Look, he'd come in and put people over, the right people. I mean, I don't think you should put over the wrong people, but if that's part of it. But if you're doing it, it also depends on your story, because if you're doing some stories, losing a bunch of times to get other people over, it can be a viable role, but it could be overdone too. So, a lot. I think that he should probably get from both sides a real creative idea, kind of etched in stone of what you're going to do. Because if you're, it's one thing to be the nice new toy for a month and then just decide, you know what, and then he's going to be locked in for 1 to 4 to 5, years, who knows how many years. So there's so many different aspects, like to just go in there and say, oh, you should go to WWE right now. It's like, I'm sort of like would lean towards it, but it's like, there's, you've got to talk to both sides and figure out so many different factors, what you want, what they want, what they see you as, where you can help the most, and at the end of the day, it's where you're going to have the most fun. I think he's going to be able to get a good schedule with either of them. If one of them is going to give him a harder schedule and not be as acquiescent as far as like if he has movie gigs or TV gigs or concert tours, if one side's like, we need you, and the other side's like, AEW is giving him, concert tour time off. Although, sometimes when he tours, he would fly back for the Wednesdays. But I mean, it all depends on, schedules is really actually a huge factor for him, because there's other things. He's not 100% pro wrestling at any point. He's got his other hobbies and businesses and ideas and stuff. So it's not an easy decision.
You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer joining us as he does most often. And we're talking about Chris Jericho and, of course, return speculation either back to AEW or with WWE after some interesting online posts for his birthday here. November 9th is the day we're producing the show here, and it's a dubious day in wrestling history. This is the 28th year since the Survivor Series screw job. Are we talking about this anymore? Does it still bear relevance 28 years later?
I got a few messages this morning. Not as many as other years. 25th anniversary, it was like pretty big. It's, it's one of the most famous things in wrestling history. So it's, whatever.
It's funny because it's one of those things now where it's been so long for us fans that, again, grew up with it. We know it like the back of our hand, but there's some people that you can say that to now that wouldn't have a clue that any of this happened.
Yeah. Especially because the whole business is so different that, like, I remember, and it wasn't even that many years afterwards. It was 15 years afterwards, right? No, not even 15 years. It was like, I remember it was 8 years afterwards. I watched the Wrestling with Shadows with a wrestler who was in WWE at the time, but wasn't in WWE in 97. And it was a young guy. And they were just like, whatever, like they were just dumbfounded. And I go like, that's what the championship felt like. Even by 2005, the championship meant so little compared to 1997 that they couldn't even fathom, like Brett's side or Vince's side. They just couldn't even get what is such a big deal. And it's like, well, back then, the championship meant so much more, in that era than it does now, and than it did then. Now, the fans, it's just a pass around thing, and WWE takes it seriously, and I know AEW takes it damn seriously, but it's not the same in the eyes of the fans, I don't think, and in the eyes of the talent, I don't think it's the same. There's a mentality about being champion that was there, through the 90s that's not there today. I'm not saying for everyone, but for most people.
Well, 2005, you already had the brand split going on, so you had two world champions in the same company. So right. That's where the dilution really started to kick in. It's funny, we'll talk more about titles in a moment here, but it's just interesting to me that as we go on, and you look back at history now, Brett's come back and done things with WWE. Obviously, Shawn Michaels is a big part of the company, and life has gone on. But at such a time for so long, it was such an issue that
it was one where you had people who were loyal to Vince. You had people who were not loyal to Vince. You had people in the middle. You had people trying to justify both sides. It was a really hot, debatable issue, which, people on both sides of the debate ignored many key points of. The key point at the end, I was like, look, I was very much in the middle of it. The key point in the end is he had creative control, end of story, and that's it. End of story. Brett was not wrong. They did everything they could to make it seem like he was wrong, and if Brett would have not talked, I heard from them before I heard from Brett, and their whole, he wouldn't do the job. And it's like, simplistically broken down, I thought, he should have done the job. He's leaving the company. It wasn't that simple. And, I talked to Brett, very soon after, and he explained it. And, it really exposed the people on the other side who ignored the key point that he was well within his contractual right, number one. And number two, he'd have lost if you handled it. He just wanted his creative say on it, which he was entitled to based on his contract.
Right.
And, it's like and this stuff happens in the movies all the time. You know what I mean? Forget about sports is real, so it's not the same thing. But in the movies, people have contracts and you have to show them in a certain light. And, Dwayne and Vin Diesel and all these guys, it comes down to the number of punches that each takes in a freaking
really?
movie. Oh, yeah.
No way.
They have creative control. Oh yeah.
Wow.
John Wayne had it. All of the big top stars have that in their contracts about how when they don't use the word sell in the movies, but when they can, look bad, when they can't. So the director can't double cross some of these films and make them look worse than they really know to look.
Wow. That's news to me. I had no idea that was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Wild. Okay. Well, you brought up, I brought up the fact that we had 2 world championships then. Some fans raising some eyebrows and maybe rolling some eyes. AEW announcing yet another title belt. Mm-hmm. And there's some controversy around this one. In fact, some people who are in the NWA are saying, well, hold the phone here. This is already being done, and it's being done by us, and it's been done by us. The national championship. What?
I mean, the NWA thing is just completely silly. It's just completely, totally silly. There's multiple world championships. There's multiple globals, this.
Okay,
whatever.
So for those that don't know what this is, though, okay, so the national championship in the NWA was basically one of the touring championships, right, that they could take anywhere, defend anywhere. We see this right now with the PWA Champions Grail, with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling going on. The NWA title itself was a touring championship for the longest time within promotions that were part of the NWA, right? So now, AEW and Tony Khan announcing that there's going to be an AEW national championship. I guess more so even than the importance of it as far as, whether or not it's an NWA thing or not. Does AEW really need this? They've already got Mercedes going around the world with their TBS title. They've got other people going around with their championships.
I'm not a fan of another championship. I think that WWE and AEW both have way too many championships, both of them. It's ridiculous, but there's reasons for it. It's like it allows, it's from a morale standpoint, it's probably a good thing. You can have more titles you have, the more people you can have chasing titles. And more championship matches you can have on a show. It dilutes the value 100%, but I'm still the person who believes that there should be a world champion and maybe, another singles championship. And, you can do, if you have a little brand thing, you can do that, but not as many as they have, both on men's and women's. Once you're, the Ring of Honor thing, when you've got men's pure, women's pure, men's TV, women's TV, come on. It's like, I think that, I think that realistically, there should be one world champion and not 2, like in WWE. I think that you can have a secondary title, maybe even 2.
Well, they still haven't crowned their women's tag team championship yet that they just started a tournament for.
Yeah, I guess women's and the women's pure, the women's tag teams, I think will be finalized on the pay-per-view. I'm almost sure, but they haven't announced that yet. And then the women's pure will be decided on December the 5th. And they still got to consolidate the women's interim with the regular, but that's when Red Velvet's cleared. And then they've got this national title up because they have so many tournaments going on. They can't put it up in a tournament, so they're putting it up in the Casino Battle Royal. And that's another thing, too, is I am not a fan of championships being decided in battle royals. Not that this is the first time. I'm just not a fan of it. I think it's a bad way, but I understand why they're doing it because it's we've got this tournament with the women's, we've got the women's pure tournament, and we've got the Continental tournament all coming up. So do we really want another tournament? No, let's crown it in Battle Royal, and that's fine. I get it.
All right, and you could say this about both sides in a way, but are we just out of ideas when it comes to wrestling in the 2 big companies right now?
No, we're not. Nobody's out of ideas. There's a billion ideas, but you're always regurgitating them. There's very few new ideas. And there's always been very few new ideas. That's but yeah, no, I don't see, when I watch, I don't see new ideas. It's just, to me, it's just a question of doing the old ideas good at this point. New ideas are great if you can come up with them, but everything in the world's been done. I don't know. Coming up with a new idea is pretty damn hard right now.
We're talking to Dave.
I can come up with a million bad new ideas. Let me say that, but good new ideas are very difficult. We can come up with bad ideas till the end of time.
I got you there. I'll take that bet. All right, we're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com. More with Dave coming up.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Legends and Champions is your weekly fix to go old school, looking at the classic world of professional wrestling. From Hulk Hogan to the Hitman Bret Hart to the Icon Sting to the total package Lex Luger. We have it all each and every week on Legends and Champions, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Network. And it's available on a Wednesday with me, Andy Evans. See you there.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Welcome back to the show. We've just been talking titles with Dave Meltzer here, AEW, of course, adding a new one. And, you know, from a company money-making standpoint, if they were pumping out more replicas, like to the degree that WWE and TKO do, I could see that being a thing where it's like, let's sell to all these nerdy belt collectors. I mean, my office, I've got a bunch of the replica ones here, right? But let's sell to these belt collectors and get more revenue and more money and everything else. But when it's just championships for the sake of championships is what it feels like in some cases here.
Both companies have that.
No, I'm not saying they don't, but at least one company can make more money off of it right now is what I'm saying.
Well, they do better with merch. They're a lot better with merchandise company, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, AEW, it's a double-edged sword. Number one, the audience they have will buy merchandise, but it's not as much of a merchandise audience. And it's not as big an audience. And then, so there's that as well that you have to consider. And WWE is the infrastructure that AEW doesn't have when it comes to that. I mean, Tony Khan's really concentrates on the wrestling and producing good wrestling show, and merchandise is clearly not his number one thing, with WWE, again, they've been in the merchandise business for 40 years. So they're better at it, and they have more connections, and they got it in, can get it in stores, and they tour and draw more people. So therefore they can sell more merchandise. So it's a better merchandise company for sure.
Well, we've had Dan Van Alst on the show, one of the belt designers out there that's made titles for AEW and other companies as well. IWGP Championship was his. And it's funny, he was talking about that recently, how they were working on a higher end North American release replica of the IWGP belts, but now because of tariffs and the situation there, especially in the US with stuff coming from China, he says that they'd have to jack up the cost to 3 times what they were before. So they're actually halting a lot of that stuff right now. So it's getting more and more interesting and difficult, I feel, for companies that want to do mass marketing that don't already have it in place, like a WWE or like these bigger toy companies or memorabilia companies to even get a foothold in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for AEW and their merch in the future here. Let's go back to the actual prestige and storyline of championships here, Dave. We have a returning U.S. women's champion in WWE. This came shortly after the news that Chelsea Green has signed a new deal and will be there for the long run. Is she pretty much the safest horse to bet on in that company right now? Because I feel like she is.
I mean, it's a pass around championship. It doesn't really mean anything one way or the other to me, but I mean, it's like she does a good job. I mean, she had a great personality. I know people are probably upset with the Julia thing, and whatever. We'll see how it goes. They made that call. They gave her the mixed tag title too, which is fine. But yeah, no, she's a good performer. I mean, she's not like she's not Io Shirai, Io Sky. She's not that, but she's a good performer.
Well, I think they're two totally different type of wrestlers, performers too. I mean, really, if you look at it, I mean, Chelsea's very character driven. Io's very much match driven. So, I mean, that's an apples and oranges. But I just look at from how much she's been putting in and just how relevant she's managed to make herself on those shows. I think Chelsea
she does great. She does great with her character. They gave her a character that could have easily flopped, and she made it a very successful character. And it's like when they give you a character where your character at first is always losing, to pull that off and make yourself a star with it is not the easiest thing, and she did it. So, I mean, I give her all the credit in the world for what she did with a character that easily could have gone the other way.
Well, it's, again, just interesting to see who are the new faces that are bubbling up and emerging, even though she's been there for a while now. I get that. But, we talked about this last week where it's like we got to start seeing some new faces. There was a photo going around, a meme of WWE champions from like the 2000, the aughts to the 10s to the 20s now to 25. And it was literally like John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, and CM Punk for all 3 decades, right? They're showing all of them.
They're they're late 40s, all of them.
Yeah.
Well, Randy's not late 40s. Randy's early 40s, but he's been around forever. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, again, it's like, okay, we're going to hit a point where we have to see some new faces popping up.
No, they're old. Look, they're developing new faces. They got a developmental system. Just a question of when they have them, you got to go with them. And they are, they're really going with Braun Breaker, maybe to the, faster than they should. I don't say faster than they should, but they're giving them every chance that they have. So I don't want to say faster than they should. That's not really right, but they have people, they're developing people all the time. And, they probably have too many older people on the roster, honestly, right now. Even though the older people are very, very over, it's one of those things where at some point, it's the WCW thing where, well, look at how great our business is. We can't make changes. And it's like, some of it, you got to see the future. When you don't see the future and you're just going with the pat hand, then if you wait till you go down to make new stars, the new stars aren't going to get over as big. That's a lesson of WCW. And I think WWE, they got to, their peak is past. But they're strong as hell. But their peak is past. And the best thing to do is when you're at your peak is to throw a whole bunch of new people out there and give them a big push so you have a new peak, so to speak. I see that in Mexico more than anywhere. They're going with a lot of new faces, but they have a lot of old faces out there too.
Whoever gets the final nod for the John Cena tournament in that last match, is that someone we consider maybe being that face of that next generation coming up?
Depends on who it is. Gunther's not young. He's not old, but he's not young. So I think the person who faces John Cena could either be a young person to beat him or a middle to older person if they want someone to lose to him. And I don't know, I'm going to bet John's going to want to lose that match. I don't know that that's necessarily what Creative will want, because it's the same thing with Sting, Sting obviously just wanted to lose. He thought it was the right thing for business. And I think John would be the same. But, they talked Sting out of it. And, his opponents that he handpicked refused to lose to him on that night. So it was kind of like, dude, you're going to win. And in the end, Tony Khan made the choice and it was just like, you're winning. And that was the end of the story.
Right. It's funny you say Gunther's getting up there, but he's 38, which we were just talking about guys like Punk and Cena and Orton and all these guys here who are in their mid 40s at least. I mean, that still leaves a lot of runway for Gunther if he's smart about it, doesn't get hurt and things like that. I mean, that could be 8 to 10 years easy.
It could. Yeah. He could, you never know how long guys will last. But yeah, and a lot depends on your popularity too.
Right.
I mean, in the sense of the guys who we're talking about are very, very popular because they were around for so long. Gunther came in at an older age. So that's, his longevity isn't so much, which in a sense helps. He's not burned out as much as some people who've been there for 20 years. He hasn't been there for 20 years, but age is age too. So, but I'm not saying throw him out right now. I mean, he's got many years before I would even think about, okay, what are you going to do now? He's getting there. I mean, I wouldn't even worry. That's not something I'd worry about for 4 years and maybe longer, depending on his level of performance.
We've also talked about Braun Breaker. You'd mentioned earlier that, it may be too fast. It may not be. He's only 28 years old right now. So, I mean, tons of runway there as well if he stays healthy and stays good. There was a time where when new faces would come in, like I think we've talked about this on the show, where I remember when The Rock first got into the WWF title picture back in the day, it felt a little weird to me. It felt like a dog meowing, and we're going to go through that awkward phase again of new faces in that championship picture. Some it works greatly for, others it doesn't work for at all, right? But we're going to see people who they'll put a title on and it might turn out to be a bit of a misstep, but I mean, that's going to be what fans get to look forward to, I think, is really who's going to rise above in this whole thing.
Yep.
I don't mean to talk bad about the guy. I'm not saying it this way as negative, but like I always think of like Jack Swagger, for example, right? Who on paper, sure, in a lot of ways, looked like he should be like a guy that carried a lot of things, but it didn't click. It didn't work, right?
No.
And so that's what I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what happens. Not in a bad way, but I want to see who really does rise above and who really does take a spot moving forward here. Talking about a guy that could do this, a lot of people are surprised that Logan Paul is now in this world title picture with CM Punk as well. Kind of an interesting curveball to throw in there with all the curveball and injury and else that's going on here. I told you this before. I thought that within a year, Logan Paul would have a world championship around his waist. You kind of scoffed at me when I said that, but here we are.
Yeah, he could. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know. I think that they're building for Breaker, and I see Logan Paul more as a challenger than someone who's going to beat Braun Breaker.
Right.
I don't see him beating Punk. He doesn't work enough dates. Not that matters, because they'll put the, Roman Reigns doesn't work a lot of dates, and but I don't see them rushing to get the title back on Roman Reigns either.
No, Roman seems to be just in for whatever. I don't even know what Roman's going to be, but the only thing we've seen of Roman in the last little while here is, he had that loss, and then when the Usos interfered, and then the promo for WrestleMania. So
yeah,
who knows? Who knows what's going to go on with that guy? Okay. Dave, a couple more things just before we wrap things up and let you, of course, talk about some things that are going on in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We've actually got a bit of a break here, and not a huge break, but a bit of break between big shows here. Last week, of course, we talked about Saturday night's main event. There's been a lot of speculation since. I know that when we first talked about it here, you said it looks like Jesse's deal is just up and it made sense not to renew. Some people have been saying they think it's more than that. Still going back to that Damian Priest thing, the comment about the cage match and everything else.
That's absolutely part of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. From that point on, I think that's when the die was cast, in the sense of, maybe we're not going to renew the deal.
Well, and I also noticed that this show around, they actually did away with some more of that retro feel. They still sampled the Obsession song, but it wasn't all 80s-fied like it was before, and the show just seemed a little more modernized again. So is this again just an evolution of a brand, you think, where it's like, okay, we've done the nods.
They're not an NBC. They don't need to, you know what I mean? The original idea was to, play back to that nostalgia. And when Saturday Night's Main Event's not an NBC, that version of Saturday Night Main Event is done, because it's an NBC thing. Now it's just something else they're calling Saturday Night's Main Event. It's a completely different animal when you take it off NBC. It's a streaming show, lots of them are streaming shows, but it is what it is.
Makes me really wonder what the John Cena one's going to look like in December.
The John Cena one has to be big and will do very, very well.
Yeah.
Like this last one, I don't know how well that did, and we'll never know. But the next one will do well for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, appreciate your time as always. Last thing I want to talk to you about before we let you go today, the vote closing, I should say, has now come to a close for when it comes to the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. All the ballots are in now. Are you getting ready to start?
All the ballots are in, and as you called, I was figuring stuff out. So yeah, this issue that comes out on Friday will have all the details, broken down by categories and everything. It's a big issue, and I have a big story and a lot of analysis, and yeah. It's an interesting ballot, like every year. It's very interesting. I don't know. So I mean, to me, if going back 2 months, some big surprises to me. Yeah. How do you
tabulate this? I'm curious. Is there a spreadsheet you use? Are you pen and paper? What are you doing?
Or
is it a secret?
No, it's not a secret.
I don't know.
I go through, I tally them, and then I put them in 4 different categories that they closest meet, which is former industry professionals, current industry professionals, reporters, and historians. And the only real judgment I make is the differentiation between the two, because some people are more than one, and some people barely are any of them, but they deserve to vote because they know the subject. So those would be like historians, I guess. But so it's So that's what I do. I just tally both things up, and it's not a secret. It's not hard. It's time consuming, but it's not hard. It's actually quite easy.
Well, Dave, I know you're going to be taking a couple weekends off from us, but you'll still be doing what you do with the newsletter. I actually heard from Joe Aguinaldo, one of our co-hosts here on the podcast, and a good buddy of mine, of course, since the old radio show days. But he told me the other day that he got passed down to him a couple boxes of old Observer newsletters that used to come in through the old radio show. So he's going to send them to me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not saying we're going to go through old match ratings and stuff like that, but I might just start tickling your memory a bit just to see what you remember about these things coming up in the future. I think it might be a fun thing to do with you once in a while. But obviously, the Hall of Fame going to be a big part of your newsletter. But what else are some stories you're working on?
It just depends on, what comes out. Build for Full Gear, the, Okada wrestling Tanahashi. That's a pretty big story, and the story behind it is probably pretty big. And but I don't know all the answers yet. I'm trying to find them out. I don't know but that's like, the Hall of Fame is probably going to be the biggest thing. This last issue, a lot of stuff, not really wrestling, but like, a lot of stuff I covered in the last issue. The UFC fight that is may have been fixed, probably was, and a lot of details on that. And then what was the other big deal? The death of Victor Conti, who was a big deal in that Olympics, and Barry Bonds, and everything like that with Balco, and still was involved with MMA until recently, as far as being an advisor to fighters, and the build to the Tokyo Dome, and the New Japan Tag Team Tournament, and the WWE tournaments. Everyone's got a tournament going on right now.
On the Tokyo Dome situation, we now know that it is going to be Okada versus Tanahashi, but how close was it to being Nakamura Tanahashi, or was it even close?
Nakamura, the only thing I know is Nakamura wanted to do it. I don't know where it went from there. I just know he did want to do it. I know Naito wanted to do it as well, and they talked to Naito. I don't know where everything went with Nakamura, because you got WWE involved, and WWE may have been difficult, and they may not have been difficult. I don't know. They still may have just gone with Okada, because really, if you go Tanahashi, what is his biggest, most famous rivalry? It is Okada. It is not Nakamura. It is not Naito. But Naito was talked to, and then they sort of just shied away. And Naito talked about that today and just said, like, they asked me, I said, I'm willing. They went somewhere else, and he just said, like, there's nobody else I wanted to wrestle in New Japan, so I'm probably going to be in New Japan for a long time, if ever. So, but yeah, it's Okada. Takeshi is wrestling Yota Tsuji for 2 titles.
Okay.
Aaron Wolf's debuting. Those are Saya Kamitani and Shuri for 2 different titles. So that's what we know right now. And then tag team tournament, probably there's going to be a multi-person junior match coming up soon to determine who faces Doki for the junior title, but if that's even at the Tokyo Dome, because Doki's got the junior and the junior tag team title, so he's going to only be in one of those 2 matches. So that's what it looks like. Don't know about any outsiders on the show. Hopefully there's a few to make it interesting.
All right, well, there you have it, Dave Meltzer. Enjoy your vacation, sir. Enjoy your vote tabulating, and we'll talk to you again in a couple weeks, I guess, around Survivor Series time. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Have a great week. Next few weeks.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXU-FM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah!
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is gonna be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Just a few minutes for this week's show left. I want to thank you so much for listening. If you're subscribing on the podcast feed through Celebrate Wrestling, thank you for doing that. Tell your friends about it. And next week, a big announcement regarding the future of what we do here and what it could mean in the long run. I do want to say this again. It's nothing bad. Nothing's really going to change all that much other than good things. So that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to build it up too high either, because It's just, we get enough hype in our lives. Don't get me wrong. If you can, tell your friends about these shows. We have fun doing them. We like making them for you, and we love hearing back from you on the Facebook page, which is where we're going to wrap up this week, because after last week's show, I put up a poll asking you about AI-generated pro wrestling content. Would you watch it? Would you pay to watch an AI-generated pay-per-view or a PLE or whatever you want to call it? Like if WWE said, hey, as part of your Netflix subscription internationally or your Peacock subscription or whatever you're watching on that you pay a fee for, ESPN with the PLEs down there in the States, would you allow them to give you AI-generated matches and consider paying for that? Or should it just be something that if they even do it, should be on YouTube or something free like that? Should they even do it? That's the other question. Well, it was interesting because I gave 3 options for you to answer on this. So there are other options, but these 3 are the ones I felt were most relevant. Would you pay to watch an entirely AI-generated wrestling show? Yes, no, or no, you wouldn't pay, but you would watch it for free, which really is in the no category, but it's not, right? Because if you're not paying to watch it, you're not losing anything except time. So here's the feedback. 77% of you said no, you would not pay to watch an entirely AI-generated wrestling show. That includes creative, wrestlers, commentators, crowd, all generated by AI. Now, 21% of you said no, you wouldn't pay, but you would watch it for free. And I think that speaks a little more to, honestly, the curiosity bug we have. I don't know if it would be good enough that I'd want to watch it every week, but I guarantee if they said it was going to be a thing, especially for the purpose of talking to you about it here, but also my own curiosity, I would probably check it out, but there's no way I'd pay for it. No way. No way. However, 2% of respondents said yes. Yes, we would. And that's okay too, because again, there's no wrong answer in this. The question is, would you do it? It's your opinion. Let's get to some of the feedback that came with it in the comments. So Blaine Vandergreen said, no, it's basically like watching other people play a video game. There's people that love doing that. YouTube, Twitch, all full of people that make money sitting there playing video games for other people to watch. Kids love watching that. I don't know why. I got to be playing the game. Dave Drashiff also says, was there an option on pro wrestling where you could set up com versus com? Yes, there was. You could also do it in Warzone, which is what I did back when those graphics were the best graphics of all time. Not so much these days. Curtis Heckenleibel says flat out, taking the performance out of performance art, hard pass. Fair argument. Bob Hunt says the training parameters would have to be so specific or return to slop before the entrances were over. Would definitely need heavy creative prompting. Even video games com versus com have heavy coding. Okay, bit of a nerdy answer there, Bob, but I expect nothing less from you. And then Michael says, I would pay to watch anything if it was entertaining enough. And that is the perfect answer, in my opinion. Because it's honest, and it's where we're at now, right? Why do you buy a wrestling ticket to your favorite local indie show? You're not doing it for some moral standpoint. You're doing it because you're going out to have a night of fun. Why are you buying a ticket to a movie? Why are you buying any sort of entertainment experience? Because if it's entertaining you, that's what you go for. Dude, why am I spending way more off hours than I should be playing Red Dead Redemption 2 all the way through again? Because it's entertaining. And that Arthur Morgan is a misunderstood man. Anyway, thank you very much for your feedback on this. Next week, again, some exciting news. Also hoping to have a very special guest with us here. A guy that when I was first starting out in indie wrestling, and so many other people have gone on to learn from this guy, is going to join us. So I'm going to save that for you when we get it confirmed. But other than that, please subscribe to the show. Tell your friends about it. And as always, thank you for listening and letting me do what I do. Play safe, drive safe. Be Cena.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.